Christmas as a child was always an event, definitely a season and a moment to be remembered. But I remember one year I told my parents, look, I don't want anything but this one thing. And you know that's always setting the scene up for a big gift that might be a little too expensive, especially when you come from a really big family. But I remember I told my parents and my grandparents, I don't want anything. The only thing I want is a little quad, one of those electric ATVs. And the crazy thing is I got it. And I told everyone, I was like, look, I'll be the happiest person alive if I get this quad. And I remember I got it, and the first thing I did the next day was take it out to the playground. And since I thought it was like a real ATV, I took it into the sand lot, and plot twist, it broke. My happiness ended really fast, and I guess I was exposed to this whole idea, and it started this train of thought. And the more I've lived, the more I've really understood that as humans, we place the value of happiness, and we look for happiness in the wrong place. Some of us look for it in relationships, some of us look for it in material things, and then there's some of us that look for it in experiences, whether it be trips, skydiving, something. But the reality is, if you look for something in the wrong place, you're never gonna find it. And if you're a person that looks for happiness and contentment in a relationship, it's gonna end, because that person is eventually gonna let you down. That person is eventually gonna break your heart. If you're looking for it in a material thing, that contentment, that happiness is also gonna end, because whether that thing breaks or it goes out of style, it's gonna stop fulfilling you like it did at the beginning, and it's just gonna leave this never-ending void inside of you. And if you're looking for it in experiences, Sherlock Holmes, come on, you don't need to be the smartest person alive to understand that this too will end. And I love what we find in the Bible in Philippians. And there's a story, and the Apostle Paul is actually in jail. And he's in jail replying to a letter. And he's saying, I've learned to be content with everything and with nothing. And if you look at the historical context of what's happening here, the Greeks actually understood contentment and happiness to be this thing that could only come from the inside and work its way out. So in other words, what they thought and what they believed was that contentment and happiness wasn't affected by the exterior world. And it's crazy, because somewhere in history, we completely flipped it upside down. And now we think that contentment and happiness is something that comes in rather than something that should be oozing out. And I love what we learn here, because if we're connected to the wrong source, it's going to end. It's not going to really fulfill us. And the Bible says that we should be connected to God. Even Jesus says, look, without God, I am nothing. And he paints an image of being connected to the vines. So if we're part of a vine and we're just a branch, like if we're not connected, we can't give fruit. And if you're probably there sitting and kind of confused, let me break this down the easiest way possible. If your heart isn't connected to God's heart, and if that's not the source of your happiness and your contentment, whatever it is you're plugged into will let you down. That's why you need to be plugged into the never-ending source. Because the moment you're plugged into the never-ending source, I love how the Bible paints this image, is that now we become bridges, we become instruments, and now this source not only begins to pour into us, but it wells out of us. The Bible says that it overflows out of us, and it begins to affect the people around us. So what I want you to think about while you're sitting there is, where does your happiness come from? Where does your contentment come from? Are you a person that's looking into relationships? Are you looking into material things, whether you have the new phone, the new sneakers, the new car, the new house? And I love we're sitting here in a rooftop because that's what cities are about. Cities are about having the new thing, being the new thing, just constantly filling that gap and that void with stuff and with people and with experiences. But I love that we can sit here and kind of proclaim in a way that none of this really does it, but only God himself and being connected to the never-ending source will really fill that gap. And inside of you. So right there where you're sitting, I would just love it if you kind of write out some stuff and just really recalibrate your life. And if you find yourself that you're connected to the wrong source, this is the perfect moment. Just take advantage of this and connect to the right source. And I promise you, God will never let you down. We love you. We'll see you next week.